I'm so excited about this one because everybody is very confident and calm, at least on the surface. Let's start with introductions quickly. If I ask you to, the introduction, I would like to go this way because otherwise it's going to be too long. We're talking about artificial intelligence. What's interesting about your background that led you to this point? We're parents as well. We'll skip that.
Buckets.
Let's start with you, Arvind.
Sure. I listened to the New York Times AI podcast the start of this year, Hard Fork, and they were talking about Claude Code, and I thought, I've tried it a few times, and the coding is terrible. And they had a challenge, and they said to folks, you have to tell us about your Claude Code project that you've done with the one proviso that you haven't coded before. And it was amazing what people came up with. So I decided to go back, and I was instantly hooked. And you could prompt for a game, and it would spit it out in 20 minutes, and with minimal corrections, you'd have a viable something. Yes. I mean, not to ship, but for yourself. So that's the most recent thing. I'm Martin Bekker. I lecture at Wits University. I'm at Electrical and Information Engineering. I'm also a fellow of the Mind Institute, where we work on various forms of intelligence, animal, human, and machine intelligence. And I've got a PhD in working on machine learning and what we call computational social science, so predicting human actions, behaviors using ML.
It's a mouthful. It's already way above my pay grade.
It just sounds impressive, doesn't it?
Carien, again, for the people who haven't met you.
My name is Carien. I'm a psychologist. And I think in this conversation, I represent the man on the street that thinks ChatGPT is the best thing since popcorn. So,
Awesome. It's valuable.
Rhys Blackbeard, co-founder and business director of Blackbeard Technologies. I think, what makes interesting my background and how kind of Blackbeard Technologies was formed is my brother is far, far smarter than me. And we kind of had no interests. We say, like, I was the sportsman, the jock, and my brother, was a piano player and all of that. But the one thing we bonded on was tech. We were drilling holes in the wall between our bedrooms to, like, put the network cable in. And we've always just, it's been a hobby, if I can say it. My brother went in professional, but for hobby, I spent 16 years at South African breweries. And when he showed me, he's along the way been showing me. So when ChatGPT came out, I tried to do a budget with it. I sat till 3 in the morning and eventually just did it myself. This is probably 22, 23. And then, I had this idea around a solar app because you have to, you've got the solar that's being wasted, but your pool's not on, or your heater's, thing. And it's like really always had this idea. And my brother said to me, no, it's 22 engineers, 3 months. I'm like, I'm not putting that kind of capital into something. And then, end of last year, we were discussing.
So your most recent job was still at AB in Bev?
No, I've only been on my own since the 1st of April.
Yeah.
And I went very quickly through that, but it was logistics. It's hard. It's grit. Which is a lot of comes and things that teach you well for no matter what you do. But it was always, having these ideas or whatever. And then Claude Code, my brother put it on my computer on the 23rd of December. And within 45 days, we had like a prototype, and I'd coded. I'm definitely not an engineer or a coder. A lot of the thinking of how it should work and how it should integrate and how, when the solar hit this level, turn this on, when this happens, whatever. And I've decided, the most things you regret in life are the things you don't do, not the things you do. And I said, well, if I don't try now, at 38, kind of can fail at this and maybe still go back into corporate. And Amazon actually asked me the other day if I'm interested, and I was like, man, if you come to me so many times, but I really want to try and see if this will work. And just to come back to the question, I think the interest is that it was always a hobby with me and my brother, the way me and my brother connected. He's still working full-time. And his whole thing is he works for a company that looks at camera images, it describes the image and looks at all the rail networks.
He's in the UK, no?
He's in the UK, yeah. But they have cameras across Europe and stuff. we have this flippant, not to use the word, but
Flippin' amazing.
that LLMs are these amazing things, but also these confidently wrong again, So I think my background was like tech was a hobby, and now it's become a career. And I went, I did a 6-month MIT course where I like to say that it's as technically deep as I'd go, but I won the hackathon at the end, and I can't code, and that is the power of it, is that if you can conceptually understand, you no longer need to deeply technically understand, but you do need someone technically understanding it because there's so much going on that you can go down the complete wrong path, and then the LLM will just keep telling you, you're on the right track.
So the reason I've got this mix of people, and again, Martin, thank you for the short notice. I sent him a voice note, and I never do a voice. I don't like voice notes, and I sent him a 4-minute voice note. It sounds like my mother. Anyway, so busy reading a book, and the guy explains it very nice. I like visual examples, and he said, imagine you got 3 or 4 blind people or blindfolded people to stand around, and they start touching. And this guy says, well, this is hard and smooth, and this guy says it's hard and hairy. They're all standing around an elephant explaining the same thing, and that's what I'm hoping from this conversation. So your background, it's high level education, or at least academics. Yours is the human part of it, which is becoming a bigger and bigger part of it. Yours is actually doing it in customers, and I think there's very few people who can say they've actually implemented AI at more than one use case. He's done that the last few months. And I'd love us to talk to AI, but like we said before the recording started, not in a fresh new way, but not in the fear-mongering YouTube stuff that we get all the time. We've got South African businesses, mostly South African businesses, business owners, executives who listen to this, and my partner who's in Israel said the other day, I think their conversion rate in Tel Aviv at the moment on actually quoting AI projects to actually pushing signed deals into production is like 3%. So everybody is thinking it, wanting to do it, but the actual numbers tell you very few companies are actually implementing it, especially in externally facing, customer facing stuff. So Carien, the specific point I wanted to bring in, like I said, is it feels like there's a you guys need to help me with my words. Being known as a human, psychologically, spiritually, whichever way you want to put it, and knowing, like data knowing. And it seems like they're dovetailing. And the typical user out there, the typical person out there is struggling to see the difference between the machine and what they perceive to be a human in the machine, or some form of thing that can actually know them. Can you maybe start with that? What your thoughts are on that?
I think it's a very human need to be known or understood, or at the very least listened to. And I think one of the fun things on like surface level, we're not even talking businesses, but just a random guy in his bedroom trying to use AI, it's immediately available. It'll respond immediately. It remembers some things that you've told it before. It brings that in, which makes you feel like, whoa, somebody's actually listening and everything I've said is important. It validates you, which I think is a tricky thing to talk about.
Remember to explain to us why, Martin,
yes,
it validates us.
And I think what then also happens is you feel like what you are experiencing is not crazy. And that makes people feel very known. Mostly maybe because AI is not coming with its own blind spots and its own hurts and its own projections. It's just listening and using everything you gave it. Where if you have human interaction, people listen with their own filters and they react to it. And that can make you really scared because what if I say this and that makes you angry? Yeah. And I think people are really drawn to that kind of idea. But then I also think, I'm wondering if the turnover to actually using it is poor or small because we don't trust it yet. Like, you're not 100% sure. It feels really nice, but you almost want to go test the theories out there. So you hear what it's told you about whether you asked it what disease you have or how to answer your mother-in-law. But then you first go test it to see if it would be that way. People are like waiting to see, is this going to be a problem? So maybe there's a trust. We like being known. We like taking the shortcut that it maybe provides, but we also don't trust it yet.
Why, Martin, is there something in us that feels like we can't really trust it? And what about the makeup of what about what artificial intelligence is?
Sure, yeah.
Is that what?
Okay, well, let's go back to your elephant. Hopefully we can end with this idea. And then I think my bit is done because, I have zero entrepreneurial skills and zero risk appetite. And so there's your man. No, okay, so Narayanan and Kapoor write a great book. And they say, imagine we have the word vehicle. And for a spaceship and a skateboard and a bicycle and a boat. And we just say vehicles. And somebody says, vehicles are the answer to pollution. And they mean, I don't know, bicycles in Amsterdam or something, and somebody else says vehicles are going to take us to Mars. And okay, so it won't work. And that's what we're doing with AI. We're talking about different things, and we use this term AI as the analogy or the equivalent of vehicle here. So step one, there's AI as in the broadest field of automated decision-making. All right, so something as banal as an if statement, if this, then that. If you add enough of them, you can have a search algorithm or a sort algorithm, and that, for a while, seems intelligent to us. So you've got this really broad field of all sorts of work. And then you've got a smaller circle there that we call machine learning. And with machine learning, or ML, that's pattern matching. So essentially three types of patterns that are out there. It's if I want to predict a number, if I want to predict a percentage, or if I want to predict a category, a class. So if I want to predict a number, maybe say a house price, I can have an algorithm and I give it lots of houses and the price. And for these houses, I say how many rooms and in what suburb it is and what amenities it has. And if I show it lots of examples, we call that training. And then at some stage, the training is done. And now I can give it unseen examples and say, predict the price for me. So that's the one way. For the percentage, well, the best example is on the right-hand side of your YouTube or whatever social media you use. It dishes up things that it thinks is more likely as a percentage of what you want to see. And then we could explain how that works. And then the classes, the categories, that's if I want to classify pictures of cats and dogs, right? I give it lots of pictures of cats, and I say this is a cat, and lots of pictures of dogs, and that's a cat, and at some stage the model knows. Now, a large language model is yet something else. So we've had AI, we've had a smaller circle, which is machine learning, and then we have a smaller circle, which is generative AI or large language models. There are some image generation and sort of diffusion models, but that works completely differently. And if I may, so how that works is we write an algorithm, we four, and we say we want to do two things. Algorithm, I'm going to show you all the text that ever has been texted, every journal article, every book, every Reddit post, everything from, the depths of 4chan, everything, every tweet, and you do two things. One, when you see a new idea, save that, and for every other idea, make a connection. And what we have is, if you think about a galaxy of stars, you have about 20,000 stars, and each of them is a concept or an idea. And you have a little spaceship, and that's taking a path from star to star, and that's a sentence. So I have a dream is just a path. And that's all it is. So when we're talking about AI, colloquially, we're talking about large language models, which is this subset here. Yeah. And essentially all it does, I mean, in an amazing way, but is a next word and a next sentence prediction model that sees if a spaceship goes from here to here to here, if I say the capital of France is, it doesn't look up. It doesn't know that it's Paris. It's just seen that that path is the most likely of all the other paths. So we say it's stochastic. In other words, it's a mathematical probability. Now, to your question about, so we want to be known and we want this thing to be human sounding, so we train it so that it has all the little verbal tics to make it sound like a human. So, it says, hello, how are you doing? And how are things this morning? We give it a sympathetic voice. I'm saying we as if I'm creating these things. But that's the idea behind it. But really the mechanics is just predicting a sequence of things, which means that there's a sort of a fundamental disconnect between what it knows, so to speak, and what it can present to you, right? It can present things in a way that we breathe life into it and we say, hey, it really understands me. And I've got some students that essentially have had kind of relationships, emotional relationships with GPT-4 and were very angry when it was replaced because there was a real friendship and it really got me. Yeah. And these are engineering students that understand transformer models and backpropagation and the mechanics, and they bought into it 100%. Sorry, that was a very long-winded explanation.
I think